Greetings, young people, and welcome back to Tim Straka History. Today, we're going to be talking about how the 6 settlements that we've been talking about over the past couple weeks emerge into the 13 British colonies as we know them. Okay, so in the 1700s, Britain begins claiming areas all over the world, not only in North America, but also in Africa and over in Asia as well. And they decide to change their name from England to Great Britain because now they believe that they have this big empire of land all over the world. And a lot of historians say that the sun during this time never set on the British Empire. It literally never set on the British Empire because they had colonies all over the world, and it's always daylight somewhere in the world. So these 3 colonies are going to develop into 3 regions. And the first one is going to be the New England region. The second one that we're going to discuss is going to be the Mid-Atlantic colonies, sometimes referred to as the Mid-Atlantic region. And then the third region we're going to discuss is the Southern region, sometimes referred to as the Southern colonies. So the first region we're going to talk about, like I said, is the New England region. It contains the colonies of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. So Massachusetts is right here. The Massachusetts colony contains the modern-day state of Maine, so important to note that. New Hampshire is right here. Rhode Island, the smallest of the 13 colonies, and Connecticut, which is located right there. So let's talk a little bit about the geography of the New England region now. The New England region contains the Appalachian Mountains that run through it, and the Appalachian Mountains are actually going to run through all 3 of the colonial regions we're going to be talking about today. So it's a very mountainy area, it's a heavily forested area, and it's an area that contains a lot of deep harbors. Okay, we talked about how the Jamestown settlers wanted to create their settlement at a place with deep water, so it would be easy for them to pull their ships right up to the shore in the deep water and load and unload both goods and people. So the New England region is going to contain the Boston Harbor in the Massachusetts colony, which becomes of great importance. So we're going to be talking about Boston a lot in the upcoming weeks when we talk about the American Revolution era. Because the city of Boston is very significant to the American Revolutionary era, and we'll talk about why that is when we get there. So it has a lot of grassy hills as well, and the soil in the New England region, although there are some very fertile areas in the New England region, a lot of it contains rocky soil. That's not exactly great for growing crops, especially along the coast of New England, which is why historically the New England region has specialized in fishing. And it's got a very jagged coast. So think of a very rocky coast. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the resources that the New England colony had within it. So if you remember back from our earlier discussions, we know that there are 3 types of resources in the world. They are natural resources, capital resources, and human resources. So natural resources are anything that comes directly from nature, like water, for instance. Okay, like groundwater is a natural resource coming directly from nature. A human resource is going to be any type of job that humans do, such as hunting or fishing, or maybe they're a pharmacist and they create medicine for people. Okay. A capital resource is anything that a human is going to make something easier. So, for instance, hunters may purchase guns, okay, to go hunting with, right, to hunt animal like deer. Okay, the gun, in the example of the hunter, is going to be the capital resource. The hunter himself is the human resource, and then the animals being hunted would be the natural resource. They come directly from nature. Okay. And let's now talk about the natural resources that the New England region has. So they're going to have a lot of fish in their deep harbors. So they're going to be big into the fishing industry as a result. And the New England area has been known for their seafood since the time of British colonization in the 1700s. What type of human resources does the New England region have? They're going to have merchants. Merchant is simply a person who trades goods to people or sells goods to people. So, for instance, a merchant may pay money to a fisherman for his fish, and then the merchant may go into a town in the New England region or a town in the Mid-Atlantic region and sell the fish that they bought from the fisherman. So merchants are traders. And shipbuilders. So there are going to be a lot of merchants in the New England region, but there are also going to be a large amount of shipbuilders. If you think about why it makes sense for the New England region to specialize in building ships, it is because they have deep harbors, they have a lot of trees. We know you need trees to make wood, so it's going to make a lot of sense for them to specialize in building ships. And they're going to have a lot of craftsmen. So craftsmen are going to be the ones that create metal tools, and we're going to refer to those as blacksmiths. Cobblers are another example of craftsmen. They are the shoemakers of the days of the 13 colonies. And then you're going to have professions like carpenters. What do carpenters do? They're a type of craftsman. They're going to make things out of wood. Okay. And then, of course, you have fishermen. Like I was just saying, it makes sense for the New England region to specialize in fishing because they have deep harbors in their region. It's also why they tend to be shipbuilders. Okay, so let's talk about the capital resources within the New England region. So there are going to be a lot of boats built to fill up the harbors in the New England region. They're also going to have a lot of fishing supplies in the New England region, okay, because they're going to focus on not only boat building, but also manufacturing, which means creating boat supplies and fishing supplies like fishing rods and fishing nets. They're going to have a lot of tools, and they're going to have a lot of churches and buildings that emerge in the region. Okay. So all of these things are made by humans. That's why they're referred to as capital resources. And the reason why there are so many churches in the area, if you reflect back on our discussions from previous weeks, who are the two groups that settle in the New England region initially? They're the Pilgrims, who placed a heavy focus on religion being part of their life, and the Puritans, who also value very highly religion. And so they're going to settle in all of those areas throughout the New England region. So let's talk about the concept of specialization now. So specialization means to focus on producing one product or a few products. Okay. If you're able to specialize in producing one or just a few products, chances are higher, according to a lot of businessmen and historians, that you're going to be able to become very good at producing that product or the few products that you focus on producing. So how do regions decide what they specialize in? Well, they take into consideration the resources that they have available to them in their immediate area. So, for instance, it makes a lot of sense for a region like New England to specialize in shipbuilding. Why is that? Because they have a lot of deep harbors, they have a lot of trees available to them. Okay, so it makes sense for them to specialize using that wood that's available to them in their immediate area to build ships out of and fill their harbors with. Okay? It also makes sense for them to specialize in fishing because they have, once again, a lot of deep harbors that are full of fish. Talk a little bit more about the New England region's areas of specialization. So they're going to specialize in fishing. It makes sense for them to do that due to the fact that a lot of the New England colonies are built along areas with deep harbors. So they're going to catch fish in bulk on their ships, and then they're going to sell them throughout the New England colonies in places like fish markets. And actually, the oldest seafood restaurant in America is located in the Boston area. Okay, so New England region is not only going to specialize in selling fish throughout the New England colonies, but they're also going to sell their fish to the Mid-Atlantic region and the Southern region. Another thing that New England's going to specialize in is shipbuilding. So once again, makes sense for New England to specialize in shipbuilding due to the fact that the region is heavily forested and there are deep harbors throughout the New England region. And they're also going to specialize in producing boat supplies. So if they're going to specialize in building ships for their harbors, it would also make sense for them to specialize in producing boat supplies like fishing nets and sails for steering ships, along with rudders and other equipment that you need on a boat. Okay, and another thing the New England region is going to specialize is they're going to specialize in producing manufactured products. So, for instance, clothing would be an example of a manufactured product. So, the New England region actually depended on the southern region's specialization in growing cotton. That cotton is then going to be shipped up to the New England region, and the New England region is going to turn that cotton into clothing through their manufacturing centers that they have throughout their region. And then that clothing is going to be shipped down to the southern colonies. So you see that relationship of interdependence between the New England region and the southern region. So there you see some of the old style ships that they used to build and all the manufactured goods like ropes, bells, anchors for ships. Okay, you see also cannons were produced in the in the New England region. And then you see some cobblers here, which cobblers was the old word for a shoemaker. You see a lot of cobblers there in that image. So shoes would be another example of manufactured goods. So let's talk a little bit about the lifestyle in New England now. So within the New England region, there are going to be a lot of villages and towns. So that setup is similar to the setup we talked extensively about when we talked about the Massachusetts Bay Colony. There are going to be villages on the outskirts of these towns, and within the villages, that's where all the farms are located. And then in the towns, that's where all your buildings are, like your churches. We were talking about how the farmers in the Massachusetts Bay Colony that live in Salem Village are going to accuse the tax collectors living in Salem Town of practicing witchcraft, so they don't have to pay their taxes, because whoever was accused of practicing witchcraft was arrested and thrown into jail. So throughout the towns in the New England region, there are going to be other businesses. So, for instance, you might see a cobbler shop. Okay, once again, a cobbler is a shoemaker. So you're also going to see town meetings being held bi-weekly in the New England region in several areas throughout the 1700s. And what those town meetings were, they kind of expanded off the Mayflower Compact. Remember when all the pilgrims are going to agree to meet weekly or bi-weekly and establish laws for the good of the colony to keep everything running very smoothly. Okay, so that philosophy is going to spread all throughout the New England region. Okay, so they're going to have those weekly or bi-weekly town meetings, and they're going to vote for or against laws. And at those meetings, they're going to pass laws for the good of the colony. That's their goal. So here you see an image of one of the town meetings occurring.